The stars blinked out. At first, Alex Hartman thought it was a glitch, some technical error, a malfunction in one of the many satellites orbiting Earth. But when the second star vanished, and the third, he knew something was wrong. This wasn't an anomaly, it was deliberate. He sat at the observation window of the United Earth Government's Central Command Station, staring up at the emptiness of space. His fingers hovered over the console, awaiting an update from the fleet's sensors. The pulse had been felt worldwide, a sudden, eerie tremor that rattled communication grids and threw Earth's systems into chaos. The sky was gone, and so was the connection to the stars. No ship, no satellite, no communication relay, nothing could pierce the sudden void. "What the hell's happening out there?" he muttered under his breath. "Alex," Kira Lee's voice broke through the tension, the tone calm but filled with an underlying urgency. She stood beside him, her eyes scanning the displays. "It's not just a blackout. The systems are being suppressed, someone or something is blocking everything." Alex didn't reply at first. Instead, he focused on the flickering screens, as if willing the answers to reveal themselves. He trusted Kira's expertise. Her work in astrophysics and quantum mechanics had always been invaluable to the United Earth Fleet. She was the mind that had seen things no one else could, and right now, Alex needed her clarity. "Is this?" His voice trailed off as the question formed in his mind. "Could this be the work of alien forces? Could Earth be under attack?" "I don't think so," Kira replied, her gaze never leaving the screens. "The energy signature is too precise. Too calculated. This isn't random. Someone's pulling the strings." Alex stood, stepping back from the console. The room was a high-tech hub of activity, stations were flashing, alarms were ringing, and the low hum of machinery was all around them. But despite the chaos, it felt as though the whole universe was holding its breath. For the first time in a long while, Alex felt something he hadn't experienced in years: uncertainty. "Commander Graf wants to see you," Kira added quietly. Alex didn't need to be told twice. Ellis Graf, the leader of Earth's defense fleet, was a man of few words, but his actions spoke volumes. The commander had earned his reputation through decisive, sometimes brutal, measures. If anyone could make sense of this, it would be him. They moved quickly down the sterile hallways, the clatter of boots on metal floors the only sound in their wake. Kira's face was pale, her mind obviously racing through the possibilities. Alex could feel her unease, but he wasn't sure if it was the gravity of the situation or something more personal. They'd known each other too long for her to hide her emotions from him, but right now, there was little time for that. When they reached Graf's office, the commander was already standing at the large window, hands clasped behind his back. The stars were missing, the vast blackness swallowing everything beyond the station. He turned as they entered, his hard gaze taking in both of them. "Sit down," he ordered. Alex did as commanded, but Kira hesitated before sitting at the far side of the room, her fingers twitching nervously as she sat down at the command desk. The silence between them stretched, thick and heavy, before Graf spoke again. "We have no idea what's happening, but we do know this: Earth is vulnerable. No one can get in or out of our atmosphere right now. And unless we figure this out, we're sitting ducks." Alex nodded, taking in the severity of the situation. "What do you need from me?" "I need you to lead a team to the edge of the system," Graf said, voice steady. "I want you to find out where this pulse came from. Kira's right, this isn't random. We're dealing with something intentional." Kira's eyes flickered to Graf, then back to Alex. "We're not just looking at a cosmic anomaly, are we?" Alex turned toward her. "No. This isn't just some celestial glitch. Someone has planned this." The weight of the moment hung in the air. The questions piled on, but there were no answers, not yet. It was as if the universe itself had suddenly closed its doors to them. They were alone in the dark. And for the first time in a long while, Alex wondered if humanity had made a terrible mistake by thinking it was safe among the stars. "I'm going," Alex said, standing up with purpose. "I'll find out what's out there." "Good," Graf replied. "You leave within the hour." Kira stood as well, her gaze sharp. "I'll be with you every step of the way," she said, her voice firm. As Alex turned to leave the room, his mind was already running through the logistics. There was no time to waste. They had no idea what lay beyond Earth's atmosphere. No idea who, or what, was behind the pulse. But one thing was clear: if they didn't act quickly, humanity would be at the mercy of forces they didn't yet understand. And that was a danger Alex wasn't willing to let happen. Not again. The hum of the spacecraft was a constant, comforting sound as Alex Hartman sat in the command chair, his fingers drumming lightly on the armrest. Kira Lee stood at the communications station, her eyes scanning the data streams. They were en route to the outer rim of the solar system, where the mysterious pulse had originated. The Earth was still shrouded in silence, and the deeper they traveled, the more unsettling the stillness became. The crew was small, just a handful of trusted officers, but their faces were drawn, tense. Alex could feel their unease, an unspoken anxiety that rippled through the small, tight-knit team. They had no idea what they were facing, but every instinct Alex had told him they were approaching something monumental, something that would alter the course of humanity's place in the stars. "Anything?" Alex asked Kira, his voice cutting through the static-filled silence. Kira didn't look up immediately, lost in her own calculations. The data was patchy at best, their instruments still struggling to regain any semblance of normal functionality. The pulse had disrupted every sensor they had, and the further they traveled into the unknown, the less reliable their systems became. It was like the universe itself was working against them. "Still nothing," Kira said at last, her voice laced with frustration. "The pulse, it's like a wall. Every sensor we deploy just disappears. I can't even get a clear read on the outer edge of the system. It's as if the stars themselves are hiding from us." Alex clenched his jaw, his mind racing. He'd hoped to find some clue, some hint of what had caused the catastrophic event. But each passing minute made it seem more likely that they were being dragged into a mystery far beyond their comprehension. The quiet, hollow sound of a warning siren broke the silence. Kira's fingers flew across the console. Alex's heart skipped a beat as he looked at the display. The ship's systems were beginning to fail again. "We've lost half of our propulsion, Captain," Lieutenant Harris called from the navigation panel. "If we don't reroute power soon, we'll be stranded out here." Alex rose from his chair, moving with purpose toward the command station. The team had expected complications, but nothing like this. Their ship wasn't equipped to handle a breakdown this far from Earth. It was a makeshift vessel, hastily prepared for their mission, and now its weaknesses were starting to show. "Do it," Alex ordered, taking a deep breath as he glanced over the edge of the cockpit. Stars, once bright and numerous, now seemed distant and obscured by an unseen force. The blackness beyond their ship stretched endlessly, as though it was alive and swallowing them whole. As Harris worked, Alex glanced at Kira. "We're getting closer to the source. What if this thing, whatever it is, doesn't want us there?" Kira's eyes met his, a flicker of doubt passing across her normally composed face. "I don't know. But I do know we're running out of time. The longer we stay out here, the more our systems fail. If we don't find a solution, we could be dead in space." Alex nodded. There was no going back now. The only choice was to keep moving forward. "Captain," Harris interrupted again, his voice shaky. "We're losing secondary systems. The pressure in the hull is rising. I don't know how much longer we can keep this thing together." Alex's pulse quickened. This wasn't just about the mission anymore. It was about survival. The crew trusted him. Kira trusted him. And he wasn't about to let them down. "Everyone, brace for emergency landing procedures," Alex commanded. "We're going in. Kira, get ready to deploy the rover once we hit the surface. Harris, I need full control over auxiliary power in 10 minutes. If that fails, we'll be marooned." The air was thick with tension, but they all moved in sync, ready to do whatever was necessary. As the ship plunged deeper into the uncharted zone of space, a sudden chill swept through the cabin. It wasn't the cold of space, but the distinct sensation of something watching them. It was a primal feeling, one that Alex couldn't shake. The crew fell silent, the weight of their unknown destination bearing down on them. A new signal appeared on Kira's console, a pulse, unlike the one they had felt before. This one was consistent, rhythmic, almost deliberate. Kira's fingers moved rapidly, isolating the frequency. "It's coming from that direction," she said, pointing to the screen. Alex's eyes narrowed. The pulse was so regular, so calculated, it could have been a beacon, a signal from someone, or something. "Prepare the landing gear," Alex said, his voice tight with determination. "We're not just investigating this, we're going to find out who's behind it." As they neared the source, a massive structure appeared on the horizon, dark, foreboding, and unlike anything human hands could have built. It towered over the barren surface of a desolate planet, its silhouette a jagged, angular monstrosity against the swirling clouds above. The air in the cockpit grew still. Alex's stomach twisted. They were no longer simply explorers, they were intruders. "Everyone, get ready," Alex said, his voice barely above a whisper. This wasn't just the edge of the solar system. This was the beginning of something much darker, something that might change the very future of humanity. The moment the ship's landing gear hit the planet's surface, a heavy silence fell over the crew. The once constant hum of the engines gave way to the soft hiss of decompression. Dust settled in the air, creating a fine veil over the barren landscape outside the viewport. For a brief, fleeting moment, it almost felt like they hadn't truly landed, as if the world around them might vanish just as quickly as it had appeared. Alex Hartman stood up from his seat, his muscles stiff from the tense hours of travel. Kira was already moving to the rover hatch, her expression unreadable, but her body language was taut, like a coiled spring, ready to snap. The others were not far behind, each of them making their way to their respective stations. Every step they took on the darkened, foreign terrain was a step into the unknown. The weight of their mission pressed heavily on their shoulders. "What the hell is that?" Lieutenant Harris muttered as he looked out the viewport. His voice cracked slightly, betraying his unease. Alex followed Harris's gaze, his eyes locking onto the dark silhouette of the massive structure in the distance. It loomed over the landscape, jagged and unnatural, its form casting long shadows across the rocky ground. There were no visible signs of life around it, no movement, no trace of anything living. Yet, the pulse they had detected earlier was undeniably coming from that direction. "It's not human," Kira whispered from behind him. She had been quiet until now, her voice barely audible, as if she was speaking to herself more than to Alex. No human technology could create something like that. The design, it's alien. The word hung in the air like a curse. Alien. They had all been trained to expect it, but no one had really prepared for what it meant. Not in the way they were about to encounter it. "Prep the rover," Alex said, his voice low but steady. "We're going in. Stay sharp." The crew moved quickly, following their orders with practiced precision. As the hatch to the rover opened with a metallic hiss, a gust of wind swept through the compartment. The atmosphere outside was thin, unwelcoming, and the temperature fluctuated wildly, a reminder that they were deep within an uncharted, hostile environment. Kira didn't say anything as she took her place next to the rover's pilot, her eyes flickering to the massive structure. Alex caught the look and knew exactly what she was thinking. This wasn't just about understanding the pulse anymore. They were stepping into the heart of a mystery that could change everything they thought they knew about the universe. The rover bounced slightly as it rumbled across the uneven terrain, kicking up dust and debris. The strange, monolithic structure seemed to grow larger with every passing moment, until it towered above them, impossibly vast, its surface smooth yet pocked with irregular scars. There was no sign of entry, no doors, no windows, nothing to indicate how it had been constructed or who, or what, might have built it. Alex's grip tightened on the seat as they approached the base of the structure. A low hum filled the air, resonating through the bones of the planet. The pulse they had detected earlier wasn't just a signal, it was the heartbeat of this place. Kira's voice broke the silence. "This pulse, it's not just communication. It's something else. Like a marker. Something's waiting for us. Alex's heart pounded in his chest. He didn't want to admit it, but she was right. They had been drawn here for a reason. And if they didn't uncover it, they might never get the chance. The rover came to a halt a few meters from the base of the structure, the engine sputtering out as the vehicle's power systems flickered. It wasn't just the pulse disrupting their equipment, it was something more. Alex turned to Kira, who was already pulling up scans on her portable device. Her brow furrowed, a frown tugging at her lips. "I've never seen anything like this," Kira said, tapping furiously on the screen. "This material, it's not just alien. It's older than anything we've ever encountered. It predates our understanding of technology." A sharp crackling noise interrupted their conversation, a low, growling hum reverberating from the structure. The air seemed to vibrate as the ground beneath them trembled slightly. "Get ready," Alex ordered, reaching for his sidearm. "Whatever's inside that thing, it's waking up." As they approached the base of the structure, a faint glow began to emanate from the seams in the black stone. It was a slow, pulsing light, like the beat of a heart, and it seemed to draw them closer, as if the structure itself was aware of their presence. They were no longer just intruders, they were being beckoned. With each step, the air grew thicker, the hum louder. The ground beneath their feet shifted slightly as though the structure itself was alive, breathing with them. Kira hesitated, her face pale as she took in the full magnitude of the alien construct. Alex could see the fear in her eyes, but there was also a flicker of something else, something driven by the same curiosity that had led them this far. "We're in this together," Alex said, his voice steady despite the rising tension. "Let's find out what's inside." The ground rumbled again, this time with more force. And then, as if in answer to their challenge, the massive structure began to shift. A section of the stone wall peeled away with a sound like grinding metal. Alex's breath caught in his throat as the opening appeared, dark and inviting. "What the hell?" Harris whispered. And then, from within the shadows of the opening, something moved. Something large. Something alien. The cavernous space beyond the alien structure was eerily silent, save for the low hum that filled the air. Alex's breath felt shallow, the pressure of the moment pressing down on him. The opening had widened just enough for them to pass through, and the crew stood frozen, their eyes scanning the dimly lit interior. The shadows shifted, as though something in the dark had moved in response to their presence. Alex's pulse quickened. The last few moments had been too surreal, too quiet. It felt as if the entire planet was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. "Stay alert," Alex murmured, his voice barely above a whisper. He motioned for the team to move forward. Kira led the way, her hand tight on her pulse rifle, every sense attuned to the unknown. The dim light inside the structure revealed jagged walls, smooth and alien, with veins of strange, glowing energy pulsing beneath the surface. It was as if the walls themselves were alive, breathing with a rhythm that was both ancient and terrifying. Harris, the youngest of the team, lingered behind, his eyes wide as he took in the scene. This is insane. It's not even a building, it's alive." "Keep your head in the game, Harris," Alex snapped. There was no room for hesitation, not now. They were beyond the point of no return. "We don't know what we're dealing with." The low hum from earlier had intensified as they moved deeper, becoming a reverberating vibration that seemed to come from the very core of the structure. Each step they took echoed off the stone, amplifying the silence, amplifying their fear. Suddenly, the ground beneath their feet shifted, a tremor shaking through the floor. The structure seemed to respond, its pulsing light growing more erratic, more frantic. A loud scraping sound filled the space as a massive door, hidden in the stone, began to grind open. "We don't have much time," Kira said, her voice tight. Her eyes never left the widening doorway. "Whatever's inside, it's waking up." Alex didn't need to hear more. He moved swiftly, signaling for the team to follow. They advanced cautiously toward the opening, their boots making soft thuds against the stone, as the temperature around them dropped. There was a sharp bite to the air now, a sign that something beyond the threshold had been disturbed. The door fully opened, revealing a massive chamber bathed in an unnatural light. The walls were covered in glyphs and markings Alex couldn't decipher, yet they seemed to pulse with the same energy as the walls outside. At the center of the room stood a towering figure, a silhouette obscured in shadow. Then, it moved. The figure was humanoid, but its proportions were wrong, too tall, too thin. Its skin was dark, shimmering in the dim light, and a strange energy rippled across its form, as if it was both there and not there at the same time. Its eyes, if you could call them eyes, were glowing orbs, radiating an eerie white light. Is that what we came for?" Harris whispered, his voice trembling. Alex didn't answer. He couldn't. His mind was racing, trying to process the alien presence before them. It was like nothing he had ever seen. Nothing humanity had ever encountered. The figure spoke, its voice a low, resonant hum that reverberated in Alex's chest, more felt than heard. "You are not supposed to be here." The words froze Alex in place. The tone wasn't threatening, it was almost mournful, as though the entity before them knew something they didn't. Something they needed to understand. Who are you?" Kira asked, stepping forward. Her voice was steady, but Alex could see the way her hands were trembling. The figure didn't respond immediately. Instead, it seemed to shift, its form twisting as though it was made of liquid. It took a step forward, its eyes locking onto Kira's. "The question is not who I am," it said. "The question is why you came." Alex's heart pounded, adrenaline coursing through him. His instincts screamed that they were standing at the precipice of something much larger than they had prepared for. "We came because of the signal," Alex said, his voice steady despite the weight pressing on his chest. "We need to understand it." The figure's eyes flickered, and for a moment, Alex thought he saw a glimpse of something more, something ancient, something wise. "You do not understand," it said, its voice softening. "This world is not meant for you. The signal you followed is a warning." A chill swept through the room, and Alex felt it in his bones. They hadn't been invited here. They had been led here. And now they were caught in the web of something far more dangerous than they could have ever imagined. "Then what are we supposed to do?" Kira demanded, her voice rising. "Just leave? Walk away from this?" "No," the figure said, its voice becoming louder, more forceful. "You cannot leave. You have already awakened it." A sudden roar filled the chamber, a deep, guttural sound that seemed to come from the very depths of the planet itself. The ground trembled again, this time with far greater force, and the walls of the chamber began to crack and shift, as if the structure itself was coming alive. The figure turned to face the growing disturbance, its glowing eyes narrowing. "It has found you." Before Alex could react, the entire chamber shook violently, and the lights flickered, plunging them into darkness. Then, the roar grew louder.